Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And for those of you who like these type of videos, please remember to click like down below. If you aren't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell, ring my bell, baby. And today, I'm going to talk about Mike Dolce. I always get his name wrong. I like Mike though. Mike is one of the good guys in the industry. There's a lot of nonsense. There's a lot of BS out there. I like Mike because the guy's a straight shooter, knows what he's talking about. His athletes get results. He knows how to train, knows how to eat. Okay, you can't take that away from him. Anything else you want to say about the guy, that's your own prerogative, but you cannot deny those facts. Right? You can't deny those facts. The guy knows how to train, and he knows how to eat. He knows how to teach other people to do it. And he does work with a lot of elite athletes. The results speak for themselves. But, you know, the guy in general has what I would consider to be a very practical approach to fitness, right? It's very practical. It works. And it does a lot of what he says. If you listen, it works for elite athletes, but it will work for the general population too. And a lot of it is more simple and non-gimmicky. And that's kind of what he sells himself on. He sells himself on being simple, non-gimmicky, and effective. That's a good hustle right there, but it does work. So over to the point. He kind of said that his stance on intermittent fasting, I'm going to tend to agree. And there's a reason. There's a lot of the groups that I follow on various social media that I've kind of dropped out of because this obsession with intermittent fasting, the pseudoscience around it. And I know Mike doesn't like the fact that I do keto these days, but I'm also not telling people that keto is the only way, and I do a very whole foods-based keto these days. That's one reason I've been continuing to recomp, and I get away with what I do is because compared to some people's keto, my protein's probably higher, and compared to a lot of people I know, things like my vegetable intake is higher. I follow a whole foods-based approach, right? A whole foods-based approach. And I don't like when the fasting gets combined with it. And I think one of the points that he makes of the reason fasting is a fad. Sure, we could talk a lot about the make-believe health benefits, because let's be realistic here. When you guys start looking closely at the science and everyone sets aside all this stuff with Dr. Fung and the autophagy and all this nonsense, which isn't really based on reality, it's its own topic, all the health benefits that seem to come from any form of fasting seem to come from the fat loss, right? And that fat loss is created by caloric deficit. And what he points out is that your long-term results are going to be compromised by this sort of approach because it does create a bad relationship with food. It creates bad eating habits. And I mean, I'll be the first to say I personally have a history of bad relationship with food. Okay, so I'm not even sitting here listening to him speaking to you as if I'm some guru who is all knowing and perfect. Guys, my own childhood abuse gave me a terrible relationship with food. That it's something I still have to work with in my 40s. Okay, it's something I am not fully over. It's something that I work with. It's my own fight. It's my own battle. Like that. That is one of my biggest personal battles as an individual. Right? We all have our personal struggles. Every one of us. For me, that's a personal struggle, and it comes down to the fact of when I was abused as a child. Okay, and I'm not going to get into the type of abuse. It was some of the most severe you could imagine. And it's disgusting, and it's not something I want to talk about. But after being abused as a child by my aunt and uncle, they used to give me ice cream afterwards, okay, to make me feel better, right? That creates one, and that's happening at 4 and 5 years old, that can create a very, very bad relationship with food. I mean, you talk about ingraining a horrific relationship with food, right? But at least I can actualize that. Right? I can actualize that and say, okay, that's where it's coming from. That's what caused it. Okay, now I know a starting point that gives me tools to work around. Because I know if you know the cause of something, you know the cause of your dysfunction, then you can work towards healing it, right? And for me, that's the cause of it. Hey, you know, you're crying, here's some ice cream, it'll make you feel better, it's going to be okay. You know, ice cream fixes everything. So, yeah, one heck of a lesson to be taught as a child. So, you talk about how we get obesity, problems with bad relationships with food. That's an extreme example. So, over to the point. The the intermittent fasting continues to perpetuate really bad relationships with food because it's you're overwhelming yourself with large amounts of garbage. People who fast, they say, oh, now I've got this little tiny window, and a lot of them will eat a bunch of junk food and processed stuff. Mike promotes a whole food-based approach, and I tend to agree with that. And I'm one of the people that when I hear the different arguments of, well, this is how people get orthorexia nervosa, they're scared to eat junk, and it's like, that's not food, guys. A lot of this processed stuff that you guys are eating, that's not food. And avoiding it or only having it on rare occasions is not depriving yourself. That's not an illness. All right, these foods are what's causing disease and nutrient deficiency and obesity. Is people gorging themselves on garbage, and these highly refined things are not really foods, guys. They're stuff that we made. We just created in a lab that's food-like. Has calories, it's not really the same. All right, whole foods based approach. I'm one of those people that say that the majority of the time 100% of your diet should be whole foods. I'm not saying you can't have a treat every now and then. Look, no one's saying that. But it shouldn't be every day. Okay? I don't agree with the flexible diet. You say, oh yeah, 20% of your calories come from junk every. No. That's not even a healthy relationship with food. Whole foods, right? And that's what Mike pushes. People eating whole foods. And the point that he comes over to is that because these people are starving all day and now they're going to dump all their food into one window, they either end up with way too low of calories and they're basically doing almost a protein-sparing modified fast. And I've seen a lot of that. Well, that's not going to create a long-term benefit other than some initial fat loss, and you better find something else to do real fast. Or we get into a situation to where they're going to develop nutrient deficiencies, and because they have to get their 2,500 calories or 3,000 calories, and they're going to cram it into one little tiny window. Well, they end up being a bunch of junk, and that's not how we develop muscle. It's not how we develop strength. And then we come over to the point of, if we're trying to be truly fit, and fitness isn't just, hey, I need to lose 30 pounds. Okay, that's not what fitness is about. Fitness is about lasting lifestyle changes. Is gaining muscle, gaining strength, gaining conditioning, gaining performance. Right? Someone who is fit is strong. They're conditioned. They can run. They can jump. They can lift. They can push. They can pull. They have mobility. All right? That is fit. And if you're fasting all the time, it will interfere with your ability to train. And that's one of his two key points I felt out of what Mike was saying is that, number one, we've got the propensity to create nutrient deficiencies and not get tons of quality whole foods in. And you guys better understand the whole foods and vegetables and stuff. And I'm saying that as a keto guy. I eat a minimum of 1 pound of green vegetables every day. That's my baseline. That's my starting point. Doesn't mean I don't eat more. That is kind of my minimum threshold. That's the bare minimum. And the point we get is that there's a lot of benefits to your health and fitness to getting all the fiber and the phytonutrients and things in. And I'm a meat-based guy. Make that clear. I eat a meat-based diet, but I still eat an enormous number of vegetables for all the phytonutrients and the fiber and the nutrients. All right, this helps with gut health. It helps with digestion. It helps with immune function. Helps with metabolic rate. My maintenance calories are like 4,000 calories a day right now. I have been recompositioning at 3,500 to 4,000 calories, staying at the same body weight and then losing fat and gaining muscle now for the most of this year. Energy turnover. And that's the point we come over to. The other point that he makes is the energy turnover and the training aspect. A person who's fasting all the day and having a 4-hour or 6-hour feed window cannot perform optimally. And if you cannot perform optimally, you can't get your energy turnover maximized. You cannot develop maximum muscle growth. Because let's come over to the other point. Are you trying to lose fat or are you trying to lose weight? A lot of people, even when they're trying to lose body fat, they're thinking only in terms of scale weight instead of saying, well, what if 100% of the weight I lose can be fat and then some? What about if over this time period I can put on connective tissue, muscle glycogen, weight, things like that a little bit, even if it's just a little bit? Because usually people lose muscle. The average person, when they're dieting, loses at least 25% of the weight they lose is muscle. What if you could gain a little muscle? How much more fat are you losing? How much higher is your energy turnover going to be in your metabolic rate? Because during that same window, instead of losing 20 pounds, and 5 of it being muscle, you gained a pound of muscle. Well, if you gained a pound of muscle instead of losing 5, you lost 6 more pounds of fat. And that 6 pounds of muscle weight difference matters on your long-term energy turnover. It matters on your quality of life. It will affect your bone density. It will affect your insulin sensitivity. The ability to train optimally and perform when trying to recomposition your body is compromised by the fasting. It's compromised. It's not ideal. And that, I think, those 2 points, when you look at those in context, is a big deal that he brings out. And then we come to the other point, too. We talk about muscle loss, right? Fasting is inherently catabolic to muscle tissue. And you can, even if you guys are like, well, I try to push down 150 grams of protein during my window, and it's like, yeah. And then you wonder why you're struggling to recomposition. You're eating 150 grams of protein stacked into a little window, and you're wondering why you're not gaining muscle. So not only are you not able to train optimally to stimulate muscle growth, you're not able to create a large enough anabolic environment through having enough surplus protein spread out through the day, which has its own benefits in the body, including things like connective tissue, metabolic rate, right? You're not getting all those benefits, then the potential for nutrient deficiencies. And then the same thing, energy's bad. I mean, people tend to, again, they tend to be hungry oftentimes during their fasting, whether they claim they're not, but it does make your energy turnout be lower because you're more sluggish, you're more lethargic, whether you realize it or not. Then, when you do slam all the calories down, what do you want to do? Then you want to rest, you want to sleep, you're tired, you're sluggish, you're lethargic. Instead of having a sustained energy output all day, optimized nutrition, optimized intake of all of your micronutrients, phytonutrients, fiber, protein, everything, right? This is not an ideal environment, and it's not an ideal environment to be fit and athletic. And that's the point. And I think that's a good summary of what Mike is trying to say. Maybe he worded it all a little bit differently, but that's the take home that I have from it, and I think he's right. I think he's right. Really do. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.